when we moved in and we would have people over, like 90% of the time, they're like, Jazz, you did such a great job. And I'm just sitting there swallowing it, just like, let me let her have it.
That's good of you.
I'd have been like,
wait, Jazz didn't say anything. She's like, thank you. This is so
we had to have a conversation about that. Like, he's gonna let people just get that to you. So we had to have a conversation about that.
Quick commercial break. We wanted to make sure you knew about our online event Monday, May 22nd at 8 p.m. entitled I'm Dating, Now What? Now, if you're single, not in a relationship at all, this is still very much for you. We decided to take our JDU program where we teach singles and those in a relationship how to date. We actually came up with 12 keys that we believe every Christian should use in order to make sure they have a healthy relationship, but also prepare for marriage well. And what better way, we say this all the time, to prepare for the test than before you got to take the test.
Come on.
So many people get in a relationship and then they're 6 months in with so much drama and nonsense and they're like, I don't know what to do. When you could learn before you even get into that situation. Now, if that's you that I just described and you're like, look, I've been dating for 6 months. Am I messed up? Am I screwed over? Like, no, we want to help you. We're so excited. We really believe that this 1 hour session is going to be able to walk you through everything you need to have in order to have the healthy relationship that God desires for you. So we hope you join us Monday, May 22nd, 8 p.m. See you there. What's up, fam? Welcome back to our channel. My name is Tim. This is my beautiful wife, Pauline, and you are tuning in to another episode of the W Podcast where you get wisdom in the word with the
Wheelers.
Hey, so we are so excited. We have some special guests this week that I know are going to add a lot of value to your life. We have Bernard and Jassmire from Bomu, and they got some of the, first of all, their Instagram looks really cool. Their house looks really dope. They look really dope. Like, it's just... everything so about them just looks cool. So I'm excited for y'all to get to know them because it's not just look cool. Like, there's some depth and some realness there as well that we're excited for you to get to hear their story. How do they manage a business and be married together? Because a lot of people are scared to work with their spouse. A lot of people have been raised to never work with family. How are they doing that? How do you find somebody to do that with? Because maybe you have a business yourself and you want to do it with somebody. So we're going to get into all of that. Without further ado, let's bring on Bernard and Jassmire. What's up, fam?
Hey, y'all.
Hello. Welcome. We're so glad y'all are here.
Likewise. Thank you guys for having us.
I know. We're happy to be a part.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I just hyped y'all up because it's real. And I meant what I said, like, even the little maps. We got the maps in our house, too.
I always tell Jassmire, like, when are you gonna launch your home decorating business? And it's happening slowly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They have plenty of items for home on their website and their business, which we'll get into. But.
Yeah. So let's just jump into it. If y'all could introduce yourselves a little bit, let the people know who y'all are, and we'll just flow from there.
Awesome. My name is Bernard, and this is my wife,
Jassmire. And we have a small business in the DMV called Bomu.
Bomu specializes in interior design, event planning, as well as those home goods that you were mentioning earlier. We have been married for 2 going on 3 years.
Yay.
And overall, we've been together 6 going on 7 years. And so, we met at church when I was pastoring, leading a next generation ministry, and she was a part. Yeah, I'm not sure how far
I love
you
that.
Start at, but yeah,
no, that's cool.
That's a jump off point.
Yeah, we can flow from there. So y'all been married for almost 3 years.
Yeah.
And you've been together for almost 7. So you were dating for 4 years, dating and engaged for 4 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you met in church. Let's kind of go back to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Jassmire, you see this guy. I don't know if he was preaching or if you saw him handing out.
Yes, a man of God.
You saw him handing out snacks at the high school. I don't know what you saw. Like, how did y'all actually end up in a relationship?
Was it love at first sight?
Yeah, be honest too. You know what I mean? Be honest.
So I was new in church, and so I really wanted to be a part of just ministry and helping out. And honestly, I did not know that he was a part of the ministry until like a few months.
Okay.
But
Wow.
I didn't see him. I felt like I didn't see you around in church or whatever, but I just wasn't paying attention. And it wasn't until I was invited to like one of like the youth and young adult events, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. But I still didn't really notice him.
Was he up on the mic preaching and you didn't notice?
There were so many people, and he is such a wonderful leader that he never wanted to just be like the main focus.
Okay, he was humble.
I like that.
He was sharing the mic and all that and the platform.
Yeah, so there was like a lot of people a part of our ministry, and so like I never put it together like he was like the lead, because I wasn't really like serving in that capacity. I was just, coming along,
right,
volunteering whenever I could. And it wasn't until like I actually came into the ministry, did all of my like onboarding stuff, and I was like, oh, that's Bernard. He is the youth and young adult pastor, the next generation pastor of the church. And I thought it was cool, but
you weren't impressed.
I weren't that impressed, I was just really excited to be a part and just like join. And I think it wasn't until I actually like started to be a part and become a leader in ministry where we kind of work closely together. And I think in that capacity where we felt like we mingled and we worked really well together. I started to see like, oh, we have so many similarities. I like talking to him. And then things started to like.
Well, what's the laugh? What's the laugh?
She loved talking at me, what I mean? Yeah,
that was a little small little.
You weren't enjoying those conversations, Bernard? Is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. Not at all. She just could talk, you know what I mean? And so early on,
that's me.
Early on, it was like I thought I was like in counseling session still or whatever have you early on, but it worked out or whatever happened. Honestly, the flashpoint of the relationship was like, I think 3 or 4 months after she started like intentionally serving and joined the team and things like that, she wrote a Christmas card to like some of our leads, and she swears everyone else got one, but I got one. And there's like a gift in there, and I was like, wait, hold up now.
So you shot your shot first. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's how I remember it.
No, did the Christmas card say, I want to go out with you, Bernard? It probably just said Merry Christmas. Like
it was more than Merry Christmas. You
Christ
know what I
is
mean?
born.
It was more than Merry Christmas. It wasn't full on I'm feeling you, but it was there was something in it. In my opinion.
It was a sister giving words.
She was helping you out,
brother.
It made you look at her like, oh, this girl might like me.
Sure. Listen, we still haven't gotten a consensus on that, but
it don't matter.
Yes, without a doubt, that was like our the point that kind of sparked the conversation about more intentional friendship, if you will, and coming into the new year. And so I think that was like 2016. End of 2016 coming into 2017 for us.
Yeah.
Got you. So you get the gift. It sounds like it may have opened your eyes a tiny bit. So how did
More than a tiny.
How did you go from the pulpit to the first date? Like how did you get there?
Jump right in. Yeah, no. Honestly, for me, it was a really long process, if I'm being honest. That entire 2017 for the most part, I want to say around March. And so there's probably a three month period between the card and a growing friendship, more intimate conversations, working together a lot more closely. And it was kind of natural because the ministry was growing at that point in time as well, and her role in the ministry was growing as well. Because she kind of came in like kind of randomly, kind of just, sat in, started helping out. And then eventually she became like our young adult admin. And our young adult ministry started to take off. And so like we just were working a lot more closely together. But I had gone through a really, really difficult season spiritually in 2015 as a leader, some decisions that I made. And so like really 2016, I had been preaching a lot. I really was healing, really experiencing restoration. And so when her and I started talking intentionally, there was a couple at church that I had kind of already been walking with, and I shared it with them, and pretty much brought her into the fold. And the wife in that relationship flat out was like, yeah, we're gonna have to put a date on that. You know what I'm saying? Just like I feel like the process that we were working through, and what I felt like the Lord was doing in your life, like I don't want to deny whatever the Lord is maybe sparking with you too, but I also don't want you to rush it. And so like she basically was like, I just don't feel like it's time to really dive in. But if you guys are open to, if you're open to adding her to our times, getting together and sharing and walking out, yeah, like I would love that. And that's basically what we did. And so
yeah, but it wasn't like we didn't start like meeting with them together. Like I built a relationship with the couple as well. So like he was still meeting with them separately, and then they
yeah,
I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah, like 3 meetings.
Yeah, by myself. Yeah. And then eventually, like as things became a little bit closer to the date where he felt like he was ready to date me.
Yeah.
We started meeting together and bringing those meetings a little bit more in a group setting.
So Jassmire, from your perspective, how were you dealing with that? Were you cool with it? Because I'm thinking about somebody that's listening right now and that may be like, man, like that sounds controlling, or that sounds like weird, or is this like, Christianity, sometimes dating can seem weird to some people. And we talked to y'all beforehand that we love being able to share everybody's different perspectives. But I'm just curious, were you from the jump like, oh, this is great, this is how I want to do it? Or were you like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Well, like my last relationship was like years from that. So like coming into it, I didn't even know what I was stepping into, honestly. And it took me a little bit by shock, because it was just like, I do what? Meet with who are these people? What do they need to know? But I think the first time meeting with them, I felt a little bit more like, oh, this makes sense. Because I viewed it as like, if this is a person that I really have a strong interest in, and they are believing in what they have been walking out with someone, I have to fully trust that process. And I couldn't just come in and be like, no, I don't like it. Yeah. I don't want to do it. I'm like, I at least give it a try. And I feel like me trying it was evident into what we actually really need as we were walking out, just like a relationship. Because I didn't realize a lot of like the baggage, but also I didn't understand like me not having a relationship for so long and coming into a relationship, trying to come into a relationship, I was going to bring in some of my stuff as well. And so just realizing that I probably needed the process as well. So I think it was beneficial. I think the waiting was beneficial, because we waited a while before. It was like 9 months. Yeah, before we started dating. But I think it prepared us to what we wanted to go into while we were dating. It didn't feel like we came in with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I love what you're saying, because it's different. And I think so many people are scared to try something different, but at the same time, they hate the results that they've been getting in their dating life.
Yes.
And it's just crazy. Like you watch all of these reality shows or these matchmaking shows, and people really don't know what they want a lot of times. And if they were just a little more open, it's crazy like what could be on the other side of that. And I think what you said, Jassmire, was so cool, because it's not like you were saying, I did it and I knew I was going to marry him. You were just like, I was open.
Yeah.
And then I was going to see where it led. And if it would have been creepy and weird, I'm sure you would have like backed up.
Right. But you saw that it was beneficial and it was helpful even for you and what you had gone through outside of what Bernard had been walking through. So you're like, okay, this is actually good for me. And you could even look at that as like, well, even if this doesn't work out, at least I'm a better person. At least I grew.
Yeah.
At least I, I learned about myself. And like, I really want to call out and like kind of honor what you all shared, especially you, Bernard, saying that like, okay, I had the self-awareness that I had went through a really hard time and I made some decisions that I didn't like. And I think it's very easy for us, especially men, to say like, oh, that happened, it was in the past, like whatever, that's not who I am anymore. But it's like, how do you know? Like if you did it back then and you haven't done anything to renew your mind or get new tools and new habits, like chances are you're probably gonna end up making the same decisions again. And I think that it is very easy, for us women, and that's why I commend you, Jassmire, that you said you have to trust the person. If they say like, hey, because you have to be honest with yourself, how much do I like this guy? Like, or how much am I interested in him? I think that's the word you said. How much am I interested in him? And if I really say I'm interested, well, then I have to put in the work. Like I have to go through this process. And I think all of us want like these, and I was this way, like a ready-made dude. Like, okay, like you're set. You're like, you got this job, you got your money, you got all these things, you're spiritually healthy. And it's like, nobody is that way. Like people go through life. And of course, you don't even really know who somebody is until you start having these intimate conversations. And of course, I mean, y'all being married almost 3 years, like, like, okay, whoa, like I'm even getting to know you even better, like it's a new level. So when you start dating, like it's very easy, like you said, to get scared where you're like, whoa, I didn't know all this was involved. I thought we were just going to go on dates and pray together and then we would be engaged. And it's like I mean, that could happen, but then like you said, on the other side, you have all the work to do. And it's not that what you all did prevented you or like you don't have to do work now in marriage. It's just more like you embrace it and you're not afraid of it and you're used to it, versus most of us, if we don't do work while we're dating or beforehand, we get into marriage and we're like, oh man, this is hard, like I don't know.
But I think that's because so often in dating we want to run to the destination instead of taking a walk in that next step.
So good.
And that's what you did, Jassmire. You just took a step and then you saw where that led you. So you all were doing those hangouts, for lack of a better word, with this older couple. Did you ever go on a date by yourself, or like when did that start, or like what was the next step from there?
I think I had to be really intentional, one, as a leader, two, as somebody who was walking in a process, and three, as somebody trying to protect a lot of hearts. And so, everything we did before we like actually officially started dating was essentially church, or, with the community of people who were in our lives at that point. And so, there really was never like a one-on-one,
like an alone time together, or like,
it helped.
It was a little hard.
Like
I'm not gonna lie, but it became beneficial at the end, because I was just like, man, we had so much accountability. We had so much like intentional friendships who, like, not everyone knew what we were walking into. So like a lot of people who are praying into the process of like our next step of like dating. And then like for him being in that big role of leadership, is you try to protect the people who are under your leadership. And so like he started dating me, and then like 2 months later they're like, oh, where did Jassmire go? Y'all not dating no more? So we were just trying to be very intentional, like in our group settings and our friendship settings, and just making sure that we were hearing from the Lord when was the right time, and like also feeling confident in ourselves and when was the right time. And I think when that time did come, it was fulfilling, because it felt right. It felt like we were stepping in something that we prepared and the Lord was in it every step. And so like it didn't feel like we were going in with our one eye.
Yeah.
closed
You
and the
did your
other
work. It was kind of like you guys completely embrace delayed gratification. I think that it's so funny because as we get older, it's easier to feel like I don't have to wait because I got my own job and I got my own this and I can do whatever I want. And like honestly, it can cause us to be extremely reckless. And I think that it does show up in our dating lives or just in our relationships in general. We're like, okay, like I don't live with my parents, I don't have a curfew. Why do I have to have a curfew if I'm a Christian who I'm dating? Why we should be able to kiss, we should be able to do all these things. Like I have control. And it's like, I mean, you do. It's a fruit of the spirit, but also like, is the spirit telling you to do this, or are you just like kind of telling him to back you up on something he told you not to do? So for you guys going really slow, giving God the opportunity to speak to you, bringing in counsel, bringing in community, it was like, yeah, I want to get this right. Like, I don't want to flippantly just be in a relationship and then not be in one. And I think it's obviously a lot of pressure when you are in a big leadership role like that. Like you're under a microscope, you're under, what's the other thing called? A light, like everybody's watching you, you know, when you're every move you make. But at the same time, it can be a blessing because it, like, you can't hide. You can't hide in this. And it's, you know, what an example you all set for everybody else that like, hey, you know, this is something to be taken seriously. And I'm sure a lot of people were like, y'all are doing too much. Like
extra.
talk to us about how, because you talked about how much, you know, support you had, and that's so great. I know you guys are huge on community, but I'm sure there are also parts of the community that was a little bit painful. So talk to us about how you all managed that, you know, with having such an untraditional dating process. A lot of Christians are like, okay, married in 3 months, like date in 6 months, and like hurry up so you don't sin. And it's like, that's not the way for everybody.
No, it's not. It's not. And you know, I really think that it's everybody's, you know, every relationship is different. Everybody's time is different. I just know that the Lord is a Lord of process, you know, and so, you know, I think we honestly, I think in that one sense, I think we both really lean really conservatively when it comes to relationships. You know, because I also know couples in relationships that are like, we knew after the first time and, you know, we were engaged. And I think that's fantastic. And I think for the people who feel like they're in that stage, you know, but I think for us, like, we've seen so many relationships, and we just feel like the process can never be a negative. The process of trusting the Lord, the process of dying to yourself, the process of allowing him to reveal yourself even more, it can never be a negative thing. I think as far as like community is concerned, I think it was really difficult because we weren't able to share with everyone while we were walking together with a couple. And I think in part it made our dating, like the beginning of our dating relationship, really difficult. Because I think one of the things that I know for a fact that I didn't handle well as a leader, I would say are the perceptions that come with singleness from the pulpit. You know, like there's things that I gave into that I mentioned, but I think even beyond things that I did wrong or areas that I compromised, I think naturally there's an aura and there's a sense that comes from the pulpit, even when you're not doing anything, that comes off more than kind or more than just, you know, shepherding love or pastoral love or platonic love or whatever have you. And I think that reality made it really difficult as well, because I don't think it was until after we just to give you an example of what I mean, the week before we started dating, there was a young lady in the ministry. She was a leader who drove up. We had our yearly youth and young adult camp. We called it base camp. And it was like planned for like a year, and it's, it was like we put so much into it. And Jazz drove up with this one leader, and don't know how the conversation went there, but this leader on the way to this camp, and mind you, me and the couple that we were walking with knew that I was going to ask Jazz to be my girlfriend after this camp. At this point, it had been about 9 months. And that was kind of the benchmark that we set, was like, let's check in, as base camp gets closer, to see how what the Lord is saying, how I feel, how you feel. And we felt like that just was a really, really good date just for transition and focus and just a bunch of other things. And on the way to this camp, this young lady tells Jazz about her feelings for me. And again, it's like one of those things where, from my perspective, like, I know what it's like to cross the line. I know what it's like to overstep. And like in this scenario, there was absolutely nothing beyond like pastoral leadership and care and concern. Right. And so I honestly think, like, with community, it was really difficult because there were moments like that with people who were almost completely blindsided.
Yeah.
Because our circle was really small of people who knew what Jazz and I were doing or what we were walking out. And so, I think that some of those feelings came out after people found out. There's, I think definitely there's a lot of surprise.
You're like, man, I wanted the single pastor.
Single pastors is hard. The most eligible bachelors.
But honestly, it's not even. Obviously, it's a higher degree for single pastors, but we know single men in the church who, and maybe they're just a leader of our team, not even a whole ministry,
volunteer,
or just a volunteer, and they have similar issues where they're just being nice, or they're just being a guy that can spell Jesus, and like women will fall for them, and they're like, I don't know what to do, and they're like, I'm sick of it. Like, I wish I was in a relationship, so I didn't have this tension of,
it's like repellent.
yeah.
Start wearing purity rings, and people think you're married, and
it was and so I think that next 6 months was really difficult.
Yeah, it was really difficult.
Maybe
so at that point, everybody knew you were. There was a point where everybody knew you were dating.
Yep.
Yeah.
And like, were y'all going on dates by yourselves at that point, or was still with the couple?
No, at that point we started going on dates alone. It was like we were still doing ministry though, because like that consumed a lot of our time as well. So like there will be moments like a Saturday or a Sunday after church we'll go on a date and stuff, but it was like known now. Like like I walk past Bernard and they're like, people are looking like, I know you two are dating now.
Right.
So, but we didn't make it like awkward in church. It was just like we interact and we still work together like normal.
And I think that was the thing, because we were leading a lot of different couples. And I think that really was something that we really prided ourselves on. Like, we loved that the couples that were in our ministry or part of what the Lord was doing, that many of them worked together. And there was never this awkward, like,
y'all kissing and smooching every 5 seconds.
Like, it was never like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I think I think that really was the culture. Like, I think people really just understood, why we were there and what we were doing. And so that balance really was down. And so when we walked into a relationship, really, we kind of just fit into what a lot of our other leaders and our community kind of were already walking in.
Yeah. So we're in the dating season, and up to this point, people listening are probably like, all right, good for Jassmire and Bernard. Like, they were perfect. Like, yada.
Oh, man.
Kind of walk us through, like, was there anything that, looking back now that you're married, you're like, we could have done this better, or I wish we would have changed this? Is there anything like that with y'all?
Bernard's face, he's like, oh my gosh.
That's a question I don't think I've ever thought about.
Yeah. No. I've never. I feel like in the dating season, I think what I would reflect back onto, especially like if you are in church and you're serving and you are a leader or volunteer, I think prioritizing a little bit more time to getting to know each other outside of church is something that I think we could have done a little bit more. We, like I said, we worked really well together. We had a really good relationship within church. Even now, like we still do, but I just feel like towards the end of, like, not the end, but like at the middle stage of like our dating, it felt like we were finally, when things were slowing down, we finally getting to know each other like on a more personable level. Like, oh, you like burgers like that? Oh, that is really awesome. I didn't know that. I didn't know you like ketchup all over your burger.
Okay,
like
now
that.
we're getting honest. Okay.
Like, you're gross.
No, I want to slow down. I would love for you to kind of unpack that more, because I think that's something that we don't talk about enough, especially in the context of if you find somebody in the church, y'all serve together. And honestly, with friendships too, like it's easy to think you have these close relationships with people because you're with them every week serving. And it's like, y'all not really close. Y'all just have proximity. So I would love for you to break that down.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think the question, so the question you guys asked, it's difficult to answer, because I think really the question is, what in you would you have changed during that season? Because I think that for us, at least, that's the thing that I think we can really go back to. Because I think, to be completely honest with you, like I really think the process of like walking with the couple and even like the season of dating, like there's not a ton that I would honestly go back and be like, oh, I feel like we missed here or whatever have you. I think the thing that we would both say, and for anyone listening, I think the thing is like, do you understand who you are? Do you understand yourself enough? Do you understand the purpose, the process, and the reason for where you are, why you are, and what it is that you're doing? Because that's all going to filter into the type of relationship that you build, the type of decisions that you make, where you live, the type of job opportunities or where you invest I mean, like there's so much that goes into, especially coming out of ministry or serving or just really being a part of a church intentionally. I think the one thing that really categorized us was that, at least for me, more so than her, there's the whole portion of my life that was masked by ministry, masked by church. And I think for couples that are listening, I think that's the question that you really have to answer is, and I think that's part of what Jazz was speaking to, is, do I know you?
Yeah.
In the fullness of who you are standing in front of me, not based on our spiritual experiences, not based on our commonalities, but what do you do when you don't have a hat on? What do you do when the things that connect us or the areas that we have connection or relation in, those aren't familiar or the same? Because I think most couples will realize that that's really the core where their relationship is, or what their relationship is, when they're completely outside of those things. And I think for us, that's the process that we went through after the fact. Was I didn't have hobbies. Like one of the things, I remember one of the questions she asked me when we first started, like, what do you like to do? And I was like, fam,
I serve God.
Like, what do you mean? What do I do?
What are you talking about? Right. And and someone like me, and I don't know, there's people from all different spectrums, but like I got saved in high school. And one of the things in doing the work over the last few years that I realized was that Christ for me was such a foundation for my formative years that I didn't even learn how to do friendship in a natural context that wasn't related to church. And so, when you that's so detrimental if you just hop into relationship and into marriage, even with that context, because you'll think like, well, I'm a believer, and I serve in this capacity, or I love the Lord in this way. And then you almost feel to realize like, yeah, but you don't know how to be a normal friend. And if I don't know how to be a normal friend, how can I be a normal friend to the person I'm going to call my wife? And all these different things. And so I think for us, it was more so that like, who are we outside of the names, the titles, and the things we experience together? Because those are the things that we're going to live with for the rest of our lives, is the core of those things when you take all those other things off.
I love that so much, because basically what you're speaking on is identity and like, who am I? not like Bernard the pastor, not Bernard, whatever, all the titles you have. It's like, who am I by myself? Like, and just having that self-awareness, because when you do get married, and this is why marriage scares so many people, is because it is extremely intimate, and your spouse does grow to know who you are outside of your vocation, outside of anything really public. And it's so interesting because, like, when we were growing up, for those of us who grew up in like a traditional home, your parents saw that side of you. Right. Like, oh, everybody at your school thinks you're this, but they don't know you're a startup, like they don't know you don't clean your room. Like, they don't know those things about you. And your siblings, of course, too, have that vantage point. And you grow up with that and just kind of overlooking that. But then when you get a spouse and you're an adult and you realize, like, oh, this person, like, they see everything. Like, there's no hiding. Like, they see my bank account. They see how much money I spend at Wawa. When I say I'm just I'm getting all these snacks. Like, they see everything. And it is a very big, like, and I feel like I heard you say this, Bernard, before too, that like marriage is not hard because you're dealing with another person, but it's hard because you're dealing with yourself and realizing like, okay, yeah, that was me. Like I did that. I can't just, push that under the rug because my wife or my husband is like, did you see that? This is not okay. We can't continue this. But that's why a lot of people, well, not a lot, but some people don't want to get married, is because they have that awareness. Like, I don't want somebody in my business, but also you don't grow, you don't get better. You don't have somebody and that level of, accountability. So I love that you kind of shared that, because I think it is very easy for people, especially if you grew up in church. And of course, if you get saved and start having your, a serious relationship with the Lord at a young age, like, that's a beautiful thing. I think in the church we do celebrate that, and we should, because it is important. But a lot of times we kind of like, in the church, we just do such a good job of like celebrating salvation, and we leave it at that. It's like, okay, you're saved, like, whew, okay, you're not going to hell, like, that's great. But it's like, that's you being born again. Like, when you have a baby, you're not just like, all right, you made it, like, grow up on your own. You're taking so much time to train them up and to teach them language and potty training, all these things. Like, you rear them until they're 18, and then you say, all right, you got it. I trust you. I'm here for advice. But when we get saved, a lot of times in the church, it's like, all right, we just don't want anybody else burning in hell, which is a good thing, but that can't be the end. So a lot of times people get saved and they don't experience freedom. They don't experience, a lot of the things that you spoke about, that you've been walking through, like reflecting on, like, how did I get to where I got? And like, how do I do better and grow? And then they ignore that part of themselves, and they get married, and then their marriages suck because they suck. Absolutely. And it's like this, it's kind of like a vicious cycle. So I think that, we're talking to our students in JDU all the time about that, about like, your self-awareness. Like, you have to know who you are. If you want to have a successful relationship, you have to love yourself. Because if somebody asks you like, hey, what do you like to eat? And you're like, I don't know, I just eat whatever in front of me. And it's like, well, it's going to make it really hard for me to like see you out to dinner. Absolutely. And like love you well. Exactly, to serve you, which I'm supposed to do, if you don't know you. And obviously there's trial and error, and you for sure we do like changes and all, and that's fine. But like, a lot of times we just don't know ourselves, and we're out here just jumping in whoever, marrying whoever, because like you said, proximity. So it's all that awareness it comes down to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you all were saying something earlier in the podcast, and it kept coming up, how you work well together. And you were serving on the same team. Was it always your plan to start a business together and want to work together, or was that something that just happened? Like, a lot of people, I feel like, are scared of working with their spouse, because honestly, it's hard. Your marriage is hard enough. It's hard to work with having to do something outside of marriage.
Yes, it was funny because someone on our team was like, man, you're married to Bernard and you work with him? I couldn't do it.
Wait a minute.
Right. You didn't tell him the story.
Who said that?
No, she was saying it. She was saying in the context of like, I could never work with my spouse.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, sometimes it can't happen that way. Like, it doesn't work that way. Like, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you need your space. Sometimes you need your own thing. And I feel like we have an understanding of that, because like even with us working together, like we don't work on the same things.
Yeah.
And so like we do have our opportunities of like doing things solo. We have a team of like 26 people. So like he's working with some other, with another group, and I'm working with a different group. And so like it doesn't feel like we're working together, but there are moments where I realize, oh yeah, we're like working together, because like we're pioneering something. It's not for us, it hasn't been hard. I think the difficult part is the balance, because we are so eager and we love what we do. And trying to figure out the balance. Like we're in dinner and we're just like eating and we're like, yeah, today is like amazing. Oh, like your growth and my growth, and that's amazing. All right, boom.
Yeah.
And it's so hard.
It's like a baby. You want to talk about it.
Yeah. It's so hard to not like throw it in there. But I feel like those little kinks will like kind of like smoothen out as like we grow even more. But I think because it's in the beginning stage and we like are very eager and it's literally our baby, it just feels good. But I think also I realize like we take a lot of personality tests, right? We take a lot of personality tests, and one of like our mentors had us do like a personality test, and we kind of like had the same personality type. I think we were off by like one key component. I think he was more on the emotional side or more on the structural side of things. And I think with that, it even grounds us even more, because like I get fixated on the like structural things, and he's like, man, and the people, but that's like your pastoral.
Yeah.
And that's like my admin feeling of things. But I think it works well for us. I can't say that it can work well for a lot of other people. I think you have to find the balance. I think you have to figure the reason why. You can't just jump into it and just like, oh, we're doing this, we want to do this, we want to be business owners together.
Yeah.
Because it may not be beneficial. You just got to know where you fall into it as you start, because like I think with him giving his 100% and I'm giving my 100%, and we're both working, there could be a lot of friction in trying to like, well, now we're trying to balance in our home life, we're trying to balance in our family life, we're trying to balance in all of these other things. And if we both have an understanding of how much percentage we're going to give into it weekly, we kind of know where our stance and our point is every week. But I think we just we work really well together. I think communication is key.
I think there's definitely some key components. I think for me, I watched my parents work together for like 20 years.
Okay.
And so I have a foundation that's kind of rooted in, I think, what's kind of abnormal, I think, in today's culture. You know what I mean? And like, I literally watched them go to work together, come home, sit at the dining table together, and then like walk upstairs together, and then like wake up and do it again.
Yeah.
So like I literally watched them do what I really never saw anyone else's parents do.
Yeah.
And I think for me, and there really was never a question in my mind, because I watched it, my whole life.
It was normal for you.
It was normal for me. And so I think for us, having the foundation of starting at church and carrying it on, and to more directly answer your question, Tim, like we knew, and I remember like 3 very specific conversations we had when we were leading ministry, that was very much like, and even like some of our team members knew at that point in time, like we wanted to do something. We talked about doing events. And I think what's so crazy is I would say like we were full of vision in that season of our lives. And yet when we thought about doing something on our own outside of ministry and serving at church, like there was nothing. There's no blueprint, there's no inspiration. And so much of it really kind of was on pause for us. But a lot of those dreams and visions kind of were birthed there, and really birthed out of really the foundation of what we had to work through, if that makes sense. And so like being responsible for youth, young adult, and really creating things from scratch. I think that's where our event planning came from. Our church didn't have the greatest amount of resource. And so whatever crazy idea or thought or way to reach people, we really had to create it out of scratch. I think that's where our design concepts come from. And even we had even launched like a clothing line, and that's kind of where like the home decor pieces. And so like there's almost like a through line from our time in leadership to almost everything we're doing now. But I would say probably three key components. Communication, I think, is number one. Humility, I would say. And I think that I commend Jazz a lot, because I think, she sat under my leadership before we were even dating. And I think there's something that was formed in that season in her that I think that's made it really, really easy to work together and to, for lack of a better sense, like both give direction and take direction. And I think sometimes that can be really difficult, and don't get me wrong, there's still moments, especially when with the team, you know what I'm saying? And when there's a difference of opinion,
I'll be acting
and
up.
people are looking at us like,
are they good?
What are they going to do? Whatever have you. Like, we still have those moments, but I think the third component would probably be like a lack of offense, like trying to live really unoffendable.
Yeah.
So humility, living unoffendable, and communication, really, I think are kind of our cornerstones in working together and in being married.
Yeah. No, I love that, because honestly, that's something everybody can apply to any relationship, honestly, but specifically a dating and then marriage relationship. Like, you need to be able to communicate well. You need to be humble. There's so many people who are not humble, and they get into a relationship and they wonder why they all don't work out. The common denominator is you. Like, at the end of the day. And then, the third piece, lack of offense, I think that's so good, because like you talked about, there's going to be a lot of times in marriage, whether you have a business or you don't, it could be about what color clothes you're wearing, or the bed sheets, or it could be about where to go to eat. Like, there's always going to be some disagreement or some tension, and you have to be able to allow that moment to happen, but not carry it with you.
For sure. I think we mastered that, if I'm being honest with you. Like, I think we have mastered that last portion, because we've definitely like not been rocking with each other and walk into a meeting and been like, killed that thing, and then like, don't even remember what we were even upset about. You know what I mean? And I think like that for us has really been really key.
Yeah.
That's crucial. That's awesome. So I would love if there's any final thought that you all want to share. And if not, you can just let people know how they can connect with you. Feel free to share more about Momu, but you guys can flow how you want to flow.
Just definitely want to encourage everyone listening that the journey definitely looks different. I think that's something you guys have focused on and, really, really try to stress. And, I think we've had a front row seat. 'Cause I think in our community, we weren't like the first people married, and we weren't the last people married. And so like we saw 3-4 different couples get married. We've married a couple, and there's still people in our community who are either single or dating. And I feel like, so we've seen like so many different processes.
Right.
And I think, with that, I think that's really the thing I want to definitely encourage people in, is that it's cliche, but the Lord's timing really is perfect, and I think the thing to really encourage people on is to really, I guess, ask themselves where their eyes and their hearts are fixed. And I think really trying to identify where that is may open doors that, may be dormant, because the Lord is waiting for us to fully trust him and release the thing that we really want over to him. And I think that's the thing that we've seen along with the process of waiting. And if I really was going to sum it up when it comes to dating and the process of marriage, I think it's trust. Like when it comes to the Lord, I really think it's trust, like trusting that Jesus won't let you die alone.
Okay.
Right? Like, that's the fear, right? Like that's the fear, and especially, the real component for women who are getting older and just like, I want kids, and just, and I can't directly speak to that either, but it's a component even of our marriage as well. And I think we really have been trying to master trust. And so that's definitely something I want to encourage everyone listening. So fight for trust. Be honest with the Lord about where you don't trust him. About what you're not trying to let go, about where he need to come get you out the way. And really dig in and try to carve out that space in your heart to trust.
That's really good.
You have anything?
No, I was gonna say trust is like a big component. Because if you can't trust God in the process, how can he trust you with something and someone? And so I think it's vital in your walking out in relationship with the Lord, because like your relationship with the Lord is like the highlight of relationships. And we've seen that with like Adam and Eve, and being able to walk that out and go into relationship with someone else and adding in a key person into that kind of trifecta of relationship. And it's important because like God trusts Adam and Eve. Yeah. And he's going to continue to trust in the process. You just got to, trust in with yourself and, have faith that it'll work out, and whatever you're being hopeful for will work out, and it's God's timing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Amen. Love that.
Yeah.
So where can the people connect with you? They're like, I love them. Oh my gosh, they're so amazing. I want them to be my couple mentor.
They're very busy.
So if you're listening, watching, and you're like, what is BOMU? And we are a 3-tiered company. I think I mentioned that at the beginning. Crazy, but I think it's a function of our teamwork. And funny enough, interior design is something that I have a passion for. People don't always guess that. Funny enough,
I remember Joss was like telling me once about one of the rooms you guys had. She was like, "Yeah, Bernard did this," and everyone was like, "What?"
Yeah,
like, it wasn't me.
Highly offensive. This is what I'm talking about. Unoffendable. Highly offensive. Right? Like highly offensive. I'll be honest with y'all. Like when we moved in and we would have people over, like 90% of the time, they're like, "Jazz, you did such a great job." And I'm just sitting there swallowing it, just like, let me let her have it.
That's good of you.
I'd have been like,
wait, Jazz didn't say anything either. She's like, "Thank you. This is so
we had to have a conversation about that. Like, you just gonna let people just get that to you. So we had to have a conversation about that. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like funny enough, Pauline, you were actually one of the first people to encourage us, believe it or not.
Yo, for
reals. Mm-hmm. I think a part of it was, I think some of our closer friends didn't know what to do with it. Because I think they seen us demonstrated at church and in other places. I think it was already kind of like a fabric of, Bernard and Jazz do this.
Just do that.
But I think like getting to know you and Paul, you and Tim, and kind of like you kind of discovering who we are, and that element of like, and your words really meant a lot to us in that season. That really encouraged us. It really pushed us to, get serious about visioning. And so I definitely want to let you know that.
Oh, praise God.
Yeah. And so we do interior design, event planning. And so that's weddings, birthday party, like everything that you can think of. Yeah. And then we sell home goods from handmade in Ghana. We ship them over here, and the whole ethos of the company is together. BOMU, the word BOMU literally means to bring together in my language, in Ghana. And so how we think about it is that everything that we do, events, design, home decor, is purpose to bring people together. And how we built our team and everything that we do, that's really the heart and the purpose of it. And so, if you're listening, you can reach us via Instagram at BOMU_CO, and then on our website at www.thebomu.co.
Love it. Love the mission. I love that you all don't just talk about it, but if you know Bernard Jassmire, like their community game, like they be having so many events and like people at their house all the time. It's inspiring to see for sure. So I'm excited that the world got to see a little bit of it today on the podcast. Definitely go check them out. and make sure you look into their events, use their services, buy their products. I know that you won't regret it.
Yeah.
This has been another episode of the W Podcast. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.
Thanks for watching this video.
To get more Christian relationship advice, subscribe to our channel.
And make sure you check out our other videos as well.